Let me try this. Marco. Oh, holy smokes. I did not expect it. Honestly, I thought it was just a Floridian game that we played in the pool. So does that mean all of you know what that game is? Yeah, okay. Then I can save us a few minutes in explaining it. I'll just say I do find it quite illuminating that whether it's a game like Marco Polo or hide and seek or sardines in a church building, so many of our games growing up as kids, they were about running around and searching and being found. As a training ground for life, we know something about that, don't we? Jacob is in the middle of a high-stakes version of these kinds of games, of this kind of life, in which he's gaming the system and outsmarting people left and right, always a step or two ahead. His barely older twin brother Esau was an unwitting victim on two significant occasions you heard me share a few moments ago. Again, that time when Esau came home famished from a hunting expedition, and Jacob pounced on the opportunity, tempting Esau with a delicious stew for the low price of that family birthright and double portion of their father's inheritance. Some good soup. I should also mention we're having soup today following the service. The second time, he conspired, as I read earlier, with Rebekah, his mother, to gain their father Isaac's blessing while he was on his deathbed. And in his old age and nearly blind, Isaac mistakes Jacob for Esau and blesses him. And it's because Jacob wore that animal fur to disguise himself as his much hairier brother. As you might imagine, this escalated their sibling rivalry to the point of estrangement. And today we pick up many years later. And it's on the eve of Jacob's meeting with Esau. Having alienated himself from his father, his brother, and his father-in-law, Laban, Jacob has realized, not too dissimilarly from the prodigal son in that famous parable of Jesus, that he needs to repair his relationships with his family. There's no guarantee it will happen, but he seeks out Esau in hopes of reconciliation. Naturally, the wily trickster is nervous, unsure how angry or dangerous his brother is now. And reports from his own scouts are that Esau is on his way to meet him, and he has 400 men with him. That's the backdrop of today's story, the night before Jacob and Esau 3. Their caravans making their way toward the ring, and Jacob grasping in the dark to find some kind of peace. His family and his people ford across the river and set up camp on the other side, while Jacob remains back, alone with his thoughts. And that is when he's jumped in the dark. He has no idea who the man is. Is it Esau himself? Or maybe his father-in-law? Or one of their men? Maybe a bandit who'd been tracking their movements, awaiting the perfect moment to strike. The Hebrew sheds some light on this for the audience. The word used to describe the attacker is merely the word used for man. Not an angel, not God, just a man. And it leaves us to wonder if Jacob wasn't really wrestling with himself. The struggle will continue long into the night. It's a lifetime of trickery and deception, misdirection and miscalculations, and now on the eve of a likely confrontation with his brother. I alluded to this a moment ago, but in the previous chapter, Jacob was cornered by his wronged father-in-law and his men, and only by the grace of God, literally a dream in which God speaks to his father-in-law, does Jacob escape. Time and time again, and here we are, we have to wonder with Jacob, have his actions finally caught up to him? Have his impulses, tactics, choices, and their consequences now morphed into demons he can no longer keep at bay. It's something another wrestler named Jacob knows well. Jake the Snake Roberts was, and still is, one of the most iconic wrestlers in history. His finishing move was voted the best finishing move in all of wrestling by the WWE, if you needed to know. He notoriously messed with the heads of his opponents, even bringing a live python into the ring to terrify or humiliate them. Animal cruelty notwithstanding, he was at the top of his field as a performer and athlete. But at the same time, he was battling personal demons of self-loathing and depression that fueled addiction and substance abuse, which in turn increased his self-loathing and deepened his depression. After retirement, as he tells it, I was a person who was beat up, gave up, and didn't want to live. I was so disgusted with myself. I had ballooned up to over 300 pounds and was doing drugs and alcohol every single day. First thing I did, oh, there's a little bee. Hi there. Sorry. Jake Roberts says, first thing I did every day was get my dope and get my alcohol set up for the day. That's what I was living for. And that's the only thing I was living on. We know something about that too, don't we? Maybe we don't all know the unbearable burden of addiction or mental health challenges. But we all know the toll our insecurities have on our thinking and relationships and choices. We may not have been or needed to go to rehab to find sobriety, but we know what it is to grasp in the darkness of our uncertain futures, of lost jobs and declining health and waning freedoms. We may not be estranged from our families, but we know the pain of lost friendships and broken promises, of failed marriages and wayward children too. We know the toll that shame has on our sense of self. We know the temptation of perfectionism, the pressures of expectations, the allure of popularity or collegial acclaim, the deceptive power in being judgmental or aggrieved or angry or resentful or always thinking we are right. We may not realize it, but we are all constantly wrestling with ourselves, our thinking, our choices. And sometimes it even seems like we're wrestling God too. And like Jacob, when we're alone and honest with ourselves, grasping for peace in the darkness of isolation or loneliness or betrayal or despair, we sometimes wonder if we'll ever come out on top. And if we do, whether we'll ever be the same for it. Jacob and the man struggle throughout the night until it reaches a point where neither man believes that he will win. The intruder tries his finishing move, grasping at Jacob's hip and actually tearing it. But even this doesn't end their battle. The bell rings as a draw, the man retreating only after blessing Jacob with a new name, Israel, which means struggles with God or struggler with God. This is a story of Jacob, of legend, but also of the future nation of Israel, who will often find themselves struggling with how to live moral and just lives and caring for the marginalized. And over they will try and they will fail, only to be forgiven and blessed again. We know something about that too, don't we? The God who never gives up on us, who always believes in us and calls us back to goodness and love and justice. A God so invested in us that the involvement becomes incarnated, embodied in the life and teachings of Jesus the Christ, joining the fray from our perspective in the cosmic struggle of good versus evil between our self-love and our self-loathing. It's a battle lost and won in the pain of conspiracy and betrayal and execution, but two that is won with the hope of resurrection and kinship and solidarity. It's what Jake the Snake Roberts discovered through the friendship and support of one of his protégés, Diamond Dallas Page. Despite numerous failed attempts at sobriety and his own estrangement from his family, who stopped speaking to him because of his addiction, his friend Dallas Page continued to check in on him. And eventually, he got Jake to come live with him in what he called his crib of accountability, so that Jake the Snake Roberts could get sober. He showed up over 300 pounds with residual pain from neck, hip, and head injuries. He took up Page's yoga program too, and he credits the friendship and that yoga program with not only saving his life, but giving him new life. And his journey inspired a documentary about his struggles called The Resurrection of Jake the Snake. For his part in the melee, Jacob receives a new name and a new gait, a permanent scar to remind him not of his failures, but of his perseverance and scrappiness, and maybe, too, his newfound humility. He leaves that place to go on to meet his brother Esau the next day, a wounded but resilient man. And maybe it boosted his confidence as he approached a potential bout with his brother. But Jacob is finally outmatched and overcome by Esau. Only this time it was pure grace that did him in. Esau receives Jacob with open arms and a kiss, resurrecting their relationship, reborn into new life and hope. Jacob names the wrestling ring on the banks of that stream Peniel, meaning face of God. Whether wrestling with himself or reconciling with his brother, Jacob knew he'd seen the face of God and the grace of it all. I'd say we know something about that too, don't we? Amen.